Hi, my name is Olivia Rice, and this is my Module 14 for EDL 853. This is the final case study, and the case study is titled When a Student's Rights Are Wronged. I'm going to kind of summarize the case, kind of put out what information we do know, and then we'll outline what information we need to know. But this is Nottingham High School, so in the Dover community, that this specific high school serves 3,200 students. They have relocatable trailers that provide classroom space for the school that was built in the early 1950s. Some of the school has been renovated and some has not. Reconstruction projects have brought most of the buildings up to code, but obviously not all of them. 1/4 of the high school buildings remain as they were when they were first built, and this is due to lack of funding. Okay, so there's a student at this high school. His name is Miguel. He injured himself at a Friday night football game, resulting in him becoming paralyzed from the waist down. After rehab, being out of school for several weeks and months, the parents met with the counselor and requested that he be allowed to return to school as soon as possible. They just kind of wanted to get him back on schedule. Miguel was so he returned to school, and then when he returned to school, he was pulled from his first hour class to go meet with the counselor. The counselor was the one who originally met with the parents also. So Miguel knew that she was kind of in the loop and knew what was going on. So he goes to meet with her on her request, and she informed him that he would actually be transferred out of his biology class due to the room not being wheelchair accessible. She enrolled him in another science course that would meet graduation requirements. But just had to drop him from biology because that specific room, was not accessible to Miguel. Miguel went home and told his parents. So they were very upset. So they set up a meeting with the principal. They were upset because they had already met with the counselor and she failed to mention a change of schedule or anything like that. They asked for Miguel to be put back in the class due to him needing this class for college credit. In whatever community college he was planning on enrolling in, he would need this specific course for it. So that was kind of their motivation to keep him enrolled in the course. And then it would also meet his high school graduation requirement. So Mr. Hernandez, which is Miguel's father, brought in an attorney at the end of the meeting to join the meeting with the principal and Miguel's mother. So Mr. Carey would be the attorney, and he ends the meeting by saying, "Are you familiar with Section 504 of the Rehabilitation Act of 1973? Do you understand the implications of denying my client access to a classroom at this school? My client has the right to free and appropriate public education. He needs specific services, and these include access to the biology class and anything else we deem necessary to ensure that Miguel's rights are protected." Okay, so that's what we know. So any legal or ethical issues obviously are very present in this case. So the first one is FAPE, which is the Free Appropriate Public Education, and which is also related to IDEA, Individuals with a Disability Education Act. So this just says that education programs for students with disabilities must be designed to meet their individual needs to the same extent that the needs of non-disabled students are met. So any student enrolled in that building, their individual needs should be met. Miguel is being denied access to a biology class due to his disability. School is not advocating for equal access for all students. The second one is Section 504 of the 1973 Rehabilitation Act. The attorney had even mentioned that in his comments. So what this means is that no qualified individual with a disability in the United States shall solely be reason of his or her disability be excluded from the participation in, be denied the benefits of, or be subjected to discrimination under any program or activity. So Miguel is obviously being discriminated against because he is wheelchair bound and the room is not accessible for him. And then the third one is ADA, which is Americans with Disability Act. The ADA is a civil rights law that prohibits discrimination against individuals with disabilities in all areas of public life, including jobs, schools, transportation, and all public and private places that are open to the general public. So again, Miguel is being rejected to the same experience as others, other students who do not have a disability, because he has a disability. So honestly, in my opinion, the school is wrong on several different counts. And maybe that was a communication error. Maybe that was just a decision made without kind of thinking about it. But there's solutions to the problem and things that we need to figure out. But first, we must synthesize the facts. So I summarized the situation, and then we're going to kind of talk about the facts. So Nottingham High School's facilities are not up to code and are affecting the learning of an individual with a disability. The denial of access to a specific classroom or a specific class is against FAPE, ADA, IDEA, and Section 504. The only reason for the unrequested change of schedule is due to the student being wheelchair bound. That is the only reason he's being pulled from that class, no other reason except for his disability. Parents and students were unaware of the change before returning to school. That's also a major communication error. Even though the counselor sat down and met with the parents, she failed to even mention a change of schedule. It would have been a great time to bring it up, or maybe brainstorm other ideas, but didn't even bring it up at all. Pulled in Miguel the day that he returned and told him of the change. This change will affect the student in future enrollment. The school is required to provide students with their individual needs in order to succeed. The school is failing to provide Miguel with what he needs in order to complete this class. So again, I would put the fault on the school. Okay, so to kind of prioritize information, because it is a lot of information, I think what it kind of comes down to is because the school is being negligent in their decisions, and they're discriminating against Miguel, there's a lot of people who can be affected by this situation and the decision of the counselor. Okay, so I'm going to kind of go through how it affects everybody. So Miguel, I mean, he's the one who's being discriminated against, and it could affect his future enrollment and college credit, and just his learning environment. His parents, there was no communication about the schedule change or the decisions concerning their minor child. They were obviously very concerned about Miguel returning to school, even set up meetings to meet with the counselor, and still there was no communication to them. The counselor, her reputation, her decision-making, and her knowledge of laws is kind of in question at this point. For her to just make that decision, call Miguel into her office and tell him what's going to happen would be concerning to me as a principal. There was no communication to the principal, to the parents, to the child beforehand. It was kind of just a decision that she made, which makes me question if she knows the laws and regulations. The biology teacher is going to be affected. She or he might have to switch classrooms, make accommodations, adjust the curriculum or the class layout. Also, the students that are taking biology, they might be affected in some way. The principal, which in this case study would be me, there could be a lawsuit and an inability to provide the students' needs. That's a huge reason why I want to do what I do, is to provide to each student and get them what they need. And so to have a student who feels like their needs are not being met would be heartbreaking to me, and also would be a legal issue. The superintendent, also, there could be a lawsuit. Their part in this would be to offer solutions, answers, explanations, results, and clarifications, kind of to do a little bit of research. What could we do for Miguel, and provide input, also become aware of the situation. The Board of Education could be affected. They need to become aware of the situation and provide several resolutions. They should not be left in the dark about this situation, especially if there's attorneys and lawsuits involved. And then the stakeholders and the community members, they could also be affected. There could be a decrease in support, protection, and loyalty from them. Because as of right now, the community is very supportive of the school, but if they feel like the school is not meeting the needs of the students, then that support could go away very easily. So I'm going to identify some options that we have to this solution. So there's several different ones that I could think of. So I put them in two different categories, like unrealistic solutions, things that I wish could happen overnight, but probably will not, and then realistic solutions. So some unrealistic solutions is to support the counselor in decision to change the schedule. As a principal, I believe that's unrealistic. I would not support my counselor in doing that. It's illegal. It's not right. And it's not meeting the needs of our students. So That's kind of unrealistic to me. Renovating the entire school to make it accessible. I said unrealistic because of time and funding. Yeah, you wish that could happen overnight, but it's just not possible. Build a new science room or a new lab classroom that meets the needs of students with disabilities. Again, in a perfect world, yeah, let's get that going and have it done by next week, but that it's just unrealistic. And then another unrealistic solution would be to transfer Miguel to a different school that provides accessible classrooms. We don't want to get rid of students who are a burden to the school. We want to meet their needs. And so to keep Miguel in our school and do whatever we can to meet his needs would be of the utmost importance. So some realistic solutions that I came up with would be to meet with Miguel. Well, the first thing, no matter what, we should meet with Miguel, parents, counselor, the principal, the superintendent, their attorney, a Board of Education member should be present, and the biology teacher, because they all have some kind of input and it affects all of them in some way. So some short-term solutions would be to move classrooms to accommodate the student and the class curriculum. So maybe another science room or another lab room that Miguel could get to, but also they could continue with their curriculum. Offer the class via online learning or through video conference. The teacher could record herself, or she could be live streaming and he could be watching it from another classroom, or like an independent study. Obviously, the biology teacher would have to come up with like a little altered curriculum for Miguel to complete independently, but still earn credit for that class. Some long-term but realistic solutions would be to make the school wheelchair accessible, or certain classrooms or the classrooms that haven't been renovated to renovate those. Have Miguel take the class in the future when the room can meet his needs. So maybe over the summer renovate the room, and then the next year he could enroll in the course. So those are just some solutions that I came up with. To evaluate the options, I put down the realistic solutions and then the advantage and disadvantages of them. So the first one would be to move classrooms to accommodate the student and the class curriculum. Some advantages would be the student would feel acceptance as if nothing has changed in regards to the class schedule. He would still be with the same group of kids that hour. A disadvantage to that, though, is student and teacher might be put out with a change of environment. Some resources might not be available, like in the other classrooms. But as a principal, that's something that I would advocate for and support the teacher in any way that I could, get whatever I needed to get in order for that class to be successful. Offer the class through online learning or through video conference. The advantage is that a student will receive the information and credit for the course, but the disadvantage is that he'd be left out of any like hands-on learning or classroom experience or discussions or anything like that, possibly. Independent study, he would receive credit for the course and receive one-on-one from the instructor. Disadvantage is that he'd be excluded from classroom participation. Another solution would be to make the school wheelchair accessible or certain classrooms. The advantage, obviously, he would have access to any classrooms in order to meet his needs or wants, but the disadvantage is just time, funding, and possible issues with construction and the school schedule and kind of what that looks like. Another solution is to have Miguel take the class in the future when the room can meet his needs. An advantage, the student would eventually receive credit for the course and would be able to participate in the classroom experiences and hands-on learning. The disadvantage is, though, is that he would have to wait until the room is accessible, which might result in the next year or a future semester. The best option that I chose, in my opinion, based off my research and kind of what we knew about this whole situation, was to move classrooms to accommodate the student and the class curriculum. So what I would have to do was meet with everybody that it's going to affect, ensure that all parties approve of the decision. I would need to support the biology teacher in her transition and what she needed and resources, and definitely be her advocate. Communicate with the other biology students of the change of classrooms. Again, communication got us in trouble in the first place, so I don't want to miscommunicate in any way. Just letting them know that their classroom would be changed to a different number. Maybe also letting their parents know that in case they had questions. I would need to meet with a counselor. I failed to mention this earlier, but she needs to be met with, and we need to talk about her decision to make those changes without considering my opinion or even the laws, which is important. Maybe talk about a 504 plan for Miguel, if that's appropriate. I know that they're time consuming, and again, it wouldn't happen overnight, but to maybe get the ball rolling and get things started. Inform staff members of the change, offer support to help, develop a plan for the school to become wheelchair accessible in the future. And then frequent check-ins and communication with the biology teacher and Miguel, just make sure we're all on the same page. So step 8, these are my simplified steps, kind of already went through them. Most important thing would just be to meet the needs of Miguel and write a 504 plan if need be for him.